Welcome, Jonathan, to this series of conversations I'm having with interesting people who value Australia very much in their life. And I want to get your story and then your backdrop and then your Australian story.
Thank you, Deb. It's very nice to see you, and I'm happy to share that with you.
Thank you. So
what would you like to know?
Tell me more about you and your history.
Well, you want the potted summary?
Yes. Yeah. Or you can add more.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I was born in East Fremantle, Woodside Maternity Hospital, which no longer exists, but and of a Fremantle family. And they very kindly sent me to Wesley College for my education. And then I had a year off between school and going to university, and travelled 3 months overseas with my parents, which was a lot of fun. Then I went to university to do an accounting degree, not because I wanted to be an accountant, I wanted to learn the language of business. And in my second year I got quite ill. And when I was recovering, my dad seduced me into the family business by saying, come and work for me while you finish your degree part-time. And I did finish my degree. And in the fourth year of that time at Shacks, he got very ill and died. Died at 56. And I stayed for another year and then left and went off to London chasing a lass, forgetting my late father's advice. You chase a girl until she decides to catch you, which is very accurate. Yeah. So I was chasing a girl across to the UK. She was already there at the time and had been for a year. And in the flight across, she found someone else, which was fine, and they're still married as far as I know. And I stayed and got into institutional stockbroking. And did that for 20 years in London, and also did some time in equity capital markets, and ran things like the Qantas float for Europe and the rights issues for Coca-Cola Amatil and Western Mining, and the huge placements in Pasminco and MIMS, whatever. Anyway, the industry changed quite significantly, and they started to call our clients counterparties, and I did not like that. And they were just seeing them as the distribution network, and I didn't like that. And the commission rate was coming down year after year after year. And we had 2 young children, and I said to my wife, let's go to Australia and bring them up in a better country. And we did. So I came back with Goldman Sachs, JB Weir, and of course, typical of that firm, they did not pay me my commission. So I left and went into business development. And that's basically what I've been doing ever since. That was in 2004. And so that's pretty well the potted summary of my history, but I did marry, and by definition from what I've just said, I had 2 children, and they're now 2 young adults doing well in their chosen field.
Lovely. Could you talk a bit more the upbringing of growing up in a business family, and then graduating, not from an education point of view, but graduating into the business side of it? What are the values when you are raised in a business family? What values are imparted to you?
Very good question. Love it. Well, firstly, the thing that initially occurred to me when you started to frame the question was that Dad would insist when we were at primary school that every morning at breakfast we got the newspaper and we discussed the first page. So that got us into the way of thinking about the wider world and politics and whatever. And that was a very good thing to do. In terms of the business, well, the best example I can give you for the ethos of the business, we had people who started, mostly young men, of course, in the motor industry in those days, started as young men and retired from the firm. Because we looked after people and we valued them. So the ethos was to look after people. And in fact, I said one day to Dad, why aren't you being paid as much as one of the salespeople? And he said, Jonathan, you've got to realise that if he doesn't bring the money in, I don't get paid at all. He does very well, and I get paid handsomely. So that's pretty well the answer to the question, that we value human beings for who and what they are. From wherever they come from whatever their creed, religion, colour, whatever, is that they are human beings.
And that ethos sounds very Australian in the spirit of that we are a multicultural society and we are the melting pot of different cultures. As growing up in WA, going to Wesley College, what do you see in the decades of your observing the tapestry of Australian changing landscape?
Oh yes,
What do you see that how has that evolved, and what are the good things, and then what are the not so good things?
Well, there are more good things than bad things, that's for a start, because we look at Australia as it stands today, and it would be the most successful multicultural country in the world, which is a major achievement.
Yeah.
You know, Europe's having some really big problems now because of its multiculturalism, because it was too fast, too quickly, and too greater numbers. What Australia evolved quite dramatically, because up until even my university days, I hardly saw anybody from anywhere else. It was, 99% Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Celtic for many, many years. Of course, we had our Indigenous people, but they weren't as evident in the cities as they are now, and that's not a bad thing. And yes, I came back from London after one of my trips early on, and was walking around Garden City, for example, and began to feel quite uncomfortable. And I couldn't work it out. Why? This is my hometown. This is my home shopping centre. I was there on the day it opened. And it was a much smaller operation than it is now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was feeling uncomfortable. And I thought, well, was that because I've not seen anyone I know? No, I'd rather not, thank you. I'm out shopping. And then it hit me. It was still extremely monochrome, extremely white. And I'd got used to living in London, which is highly multicultural. And I couldn't work it out why, and then the penny dropped. And I think we have been immensely successful in our introduction of peoples from around the world. And my personal view is that anyone who enters the country legally is instantly an Australian. You don't have to go through citizenship as far as I'm concerned. You have chosen to come to this country for whatever reasons, but by doing so you've done the country honour as well.
I want to go back to and use that as a template, that conversation you had with the dad when he opened the first page of the newspaper and then discussed. And in today's Australia, when you open the newspaper and then see the first few pages of the newspaper, and I want to discuss those first few pages in the last few years, and that there are many. And what do you think is more worrying from a policy point of view, or what things are the biggest worries of yours when you see the papers, not just recently, but in the last year or so?
Well, there's first thing to realise about the newspapers, and that is to sell newspapers. So, and I interviewed once with the chief executive of a newspaper in this country when I brought investors out from the UK, who said, "You must realise, Mr. Shack, that we are just a advertising medium now. We've driven down our journalistic capacity to its absolute zero." And you do see plagiarism, across the papers as well. So once upon a time, it was the news. It really was the news, and it was the only way we got the news, except for the radio and the television. But at breakfast we didn't watch television. We weren't listening to the radio, but we were reading the newspaper, and it was the biggest news of the day. Not necessarily just in Australia, and that's changed a bit too, because it's very parochial now. The first page of the local newspaper. I remember in 1967 when the Six-Day War happened, seeing the photos of that on the front page, and we discussed that.
Wow. A very imminent question, I think, wanting to ask. In your mind, what's the Australian spirit? What is very colloquial and what's very reminiscent of what Australia is when you came back and what you felt, and when you were distant from your motherland, and what the attraction back beyond other reasons, but what's the Australian spirit?
I think the Australian spirit remains as to what's in the myth of the Australian spirit as well, in terms of mateship and comradeship and looking after each other and giving people a fair go. I think those things still exist. But it's like when you meet somebody, in fact, I've said to my two daughters that what we've got to realise that there are more good people in the world than not, but many of them have to be encouraged to be a little bit better than what they are, including you and me, you know, talking to them. And so I think that sits a little bit below the surface now, but it can be brought up again. And what's been fascinating in recent years is the rise in numbers at the Anzac Day service. We've just had that recently. And at South Perth, for example, where I've been going for the last 10 years, numbers doubled this year from last year. And it's great because you have young students from places like Penrose and Aquinas and Fountain College and Aquinas who take turns to speak. 2 schools each year. And as always, there is an Australian sort of perspective, and then the people from Fountain College, which is from a Turkish perspective. And that is accepted absolutely readily by the I was going to say congregation. It's not a congregation, but it is slightly a religious service, but it's the group.
Yeah, powerful. It's just positive that we have more people, you know, and more services happening across Australia. And the spirit of nationalism or the national identity, which is partly the Australian spirit, but in a more individualized for every individual, that how they see themselves either part of a nation or an Australian. So, and people have a thought of being a nationalist or in nationalism, and how these terms have evolved in usage, and people accepting and saying they are Australians and they believe the nation should come first before other things.
Yeah. Words are very powerful, as you know, in your game. And nationalism, particularly in Europe and other places, is deemed to be a negative thing because it's been taken to an extreme. Being nationalistic or patriotic, I think, is very much part of the Australian way. And again, we see that on Australia Day. And, you know, yes, there is a lot of controversy about Australia Day for what the actual date is. But the concept of celebrating the nation, there's no controversy about that at all, really. You know, how we celebrate it and for whom we celebrate it, you know, can be up for debate. But there's plenty of people who support it. Yeah, and I think that nationalism or patriotic pride, again, sits below the surface. You know, if you watch the old war movies of the Anzacs or the Second World War or whatever, where they're undoubtedly Australian. There's no doubt that they are Australian. And they're proud to be Australian, but they're not trying to push it down anyone's throat either.
Wow. With your financial background, and you would, as a default, understand economics very well and the macro side of it. If you are sitting with the RBA of Australia or people who are controlling the financial institution and seeing where the currency is going, seeing where the economic parity and disparity from a nation point of view, the GDP growth rate, inflation, and unemployment rate, if you have to see Australia as an economist hat, what are the things you intend to do or you want to do so that we might, if you're not on the right pathway, first of all, the question is to be put back onto the right pathway if we are not.
Yes, that's a huge question.
Yes.
But I'll have a stab.
Thank you.
Firstly, we're not on the right path. If you go back to the times of John Howard and Peter Costello as people in charge of the national economy, where we had no national debt. We were beginning to reduce the tax burden on people. We were putting money away for future funds. And you know, now we're looking down the barrel of $1 trillion of debt, which is has to be repaid. And of course, more and more of the budget goes to paying the interest rate, especially in a rising interest rate environment. So what would I like to see and where we've come from? Well, firstly, all sides of politics have to get away from growing GDP by immigration. we've got to grow GDP by productivity. So the actual GDP per head has actually been going down because we've just had more people, which has grown the GDP in total. That's not to say that I'm anti-migration, quite the opposite. I'm pro-migration. But it has to come at a pace that suits both the cohesion of the society and also the capacity to build houses. Now, what we've seen, again, across the political spectrum over many decades has been lots of ways to build demand for housing, but very little done for supply. And now we're seeing the outworkings of that. I certainly believe in sound money and balanced budgets. I mean, fiat currency is fraught anyway because the printing presses can just be chugged and more money is sent out into the economy. And we saw that through COVID and we will see it again, and we saw it through the 2008 financial crisis. And what that does is just stokes up for the future inflation. Now, why is inflation a bogeyman? Well, it's a bogeyman because it destroys wealth. And particularly for people on fixed incomes, you know, they just see their wealth evaporating.
With the same lens of economist, what do you see the West Australian economy, where it's going, what's lagging and what are we doing good, and what things we should do better?
Well, the biggest thing in Western Australia, of course, is the resources industry. But we shouldn't forget the agricultural industry either, which is a massive player. But nobody ever talks about it. But those things, they're cyclical and they are subject to weather, all of them, and subject to other people's demand. What we really need to see in Western Australia, which is doing better than the rest of the country and better than the rest of the world in many senses, because of the minerals export and because of the grain export, is to diversify the economy. And we have so much innovation here in this city, it's unbelievable, but nobody wants to fund it. And this is the problem. This is the biggest problem. We have had many businesses have to go east or overseas to find funding and stay overseas. And that's stopped us from diversifying sufficiently enough.
Thank you. And I want to go back and talk to you about your views on housing. In terms of, you talked about supply and the demand side of it. And specifically talking from a West Australian perspective on the housing side of it. And if you can link that, first of all, your views on, you know, housing for Middle West Australia and housing for people who are on the verge of being homeless. And the last leg is probably people who are homeless.
Yes. Well, I certainly believe in the safety net. And for people who don't know what that is where government and the society in partnership look after people who can't look after themselves. So welfare is another way of saying it, but really I like the term safety net because let's catch people as they fall and don't let them hit the ground. So in terms of housing per se, we need to build more houses. We need more infill building and we need more apartments. But we need apartments where people want to have apartments and they're specifically near transport nodes. We need people to be able to live the Australian dream, and that's have to have their individual house on a quarter-acre block, 1,000 square metres, as they say these days, and to live the lifestyle that they want to live. Now, we all know we've got no shortage of land, but we also know that we've got an urban sprawl, you know, which goes from Yanchep to Mandurah and below. And there's an awful lot of land in there, but neither do we want houses all the way. We need to have parks and gardens and forest and national parks and all of those sorts of things, again, for the quality of life. But truly, we need to actually, if government policy is to do anything, it should be to increase the supply of housing. This will look after the people from the top to the low. If you think about a suburb where I live, for example, there's a lot of empty housing. Now, yes, there's a small tax on foreign ownership of that empty housing, but there should be a large tax on that, because if a house is not occupied for any given, say, 6 months within a year, it's a wasted resource. It distorts the market because it takes that capacity out of the market for which there is no return. In fact, they're often not looked after very well either. So, yeah, and some of those are at the top end, but it has that drip down or cascading down impact.
Wow.
If they were brought back into the market, there would be people below it would be brought back into the market. And I've got one very close to me that just sits empty all the time.
And how does the cost of living pressures on middle Western Australia is going through? And I'm trying to focus more on the West Australian perspective because we are on this land, and that's the question I want to ask, that what's the cost of living pressures in real life is impacting, and what are decisions a man or a woman from Western Australia is taking on a day-to-day basis?
Well, firstly, let's put it in context. The majority of people in Western Australia live well in a world context. Are they living as well as they used to? No. Are they living as well as they want to? No. So those costs of living pressures are having an impact. Now, these are often called first world problems. You may not be able to replace the carpet when you want to because you've had a big bill on the car and everything's costing more. But nonetheless, we live here, and this is where we've chosen to live. This is where millions of people now do live, and nobody wants to see a declining standard of living. And that will have impacts on social cohesion. That will have impacts on crime. So there are negative impacts from a rising cost of living. It's not just financial.
Wow. You talked about the word productivity and then how this and sound economic principles. And if we talk again on West Australian economy, what are the key things to be done to impact productivity in near term?
Very challenging question. Productivity is about producing X amount of goods from X amount of work, goods and services. We all know that we can do within a given hour that we can do so much work, but after about 50 minutes our capacity starts to fall off a little bit, and we've got to have a tea break or a coffee break. And that is writ large. So in a given week, a working person probably works for about 3 days out of 5 as it is, because of all the other things that happen. And that's not laziness, that's just a fact. But if we made that 3.5 days or 4 because of better management, better investment, more encouragement, of course they would be producing more. So it's not calling anyone lazy or they're not working hard enough. It is setting up the framework that people want to work harder and better for a higher return. And then there's the clearest sort of example between one side of politics and another. One side of politics wants to bake the cake and then divide it. The other one wants to divide it before baking it.
Without naming names on the politics side, that's a good answer. I love that way you portrayed that. You also use one word called innovation, and if organizations in Western Australia have to go onto the East Coast to receive seed equity or seed capital to push the innovation to fruition, and as people know that the classic example of Canva in WA is one of the classic example of the startup which rose to be a unicorn. How can we create more unicorns in the state which will support the state GDP and the state income
and broaden the economic base
and attract foreign investors to Western Australia and attract foreign investment into businesses for us to thrive and then grow. So what, from a policy perspective, what state should think about to bringing the idea of finding new things and then creating those things here and being the best in the world?
Great question. My personal hobby horse. If you look around the world, the most innovative and successful country is Israel. They came up with a policy some decades ago that if an international investor was to bring 1 shekel into their country, the government would match it with 1 shekel. And that's what we should do here. That would be run by private enterprise. It would be initiated by private enterprise. The risk takers who understand risk would be investing in it because they think they're going to make a fantastic return. That is very different from government trying to pick winners because of their ideology. Very different. And Israel was very successful at doing that. So money came in from around the world, the government matched the money, and they became very successful. Regardless of the politics, regardless of religion or the geography, that happened.
It's a good case study.
It is.
And that could create more innovation and then support the idea of innovation.
Well, we have plenty of innovation here. It's bursting out of people's... It's just amazing. I could fund $1 billion worth of innovation tomorrow if I had the right money.
Wow. Talking on state government and broad spending point of view, and one of the classic economists said that when you are spending somebody else's money, you are frivolous with it. When it's not your own money, if it's your own money, you're very conscious and cautious where you spend the money. But as governments too, they're spending taxpayers' money.
Absolutely.
So when governments are spending taxpayers' money, and how have we gone right? The good examples of gone right, and then good examples of gone bad. And then from a state perspective of Western Australia, could you just share your views on the effective utilization of taxpayers' money and then government spendings?
Right. Well, firstly, you've reminded me of a coffee mug I have, which is a phrase from Margaret Thatcher. The problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money. And that's true enough in my view. The other thing is that, and I'm anti-banning anything, I'm more a libertarian than anything else these days, with the strongest proviso that nobody hurts anyone else. But I'd love to ban the word resources when we're talking about government, because you use the term taxpayers' money. Politicians generally use the word resources as a euphemism for taxpayers' money. It should not be allowed, because if we couch everything in the context of an output from the input of taxpayers' money, I think it would change some perspectives. The state is doing better than most other states in the Commonwealth, there's no doubt about that. It is mainly because of income. On the expenditure side, because of that massive royalty income, we have become profligate. And it's not just things like helping people pay for their electricity bills, and that could be debated in its own right. It's not keeping control of contracts. There's the new footbridge across the Swan River down near the causeway, way over budget. And it's a new project. It's already tens of millions over budget, possibly more. Metronet is way over budget and way behind time. And, you know, I will get political here, is that I think that people who have never been in business don't know how to understand a contract and don't write the right contracts at the start.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. That's very powerful on the spending side of it. When we talk to the Middle Australia, the knowledge of civics, the knowledge of the way the governments are run, the knowledge of the political process, the idea of engaging majority of the Australia in the discussions, not just the last 6 weeks of campaigning, but in the common knowledge and the common parlance of the Western Australia and Middle Australia, to talk about how the policies are affecting them, not just near term, but long term. So how do we increase or shift the mind, or shift the conversation level and the standards?
This is a huge question, Dev. A really, really important question. Because it's not just about people engaging in politics at the, at the top end, so to speak. It comes from they should fix it, or the government should do that. People have started to lose personal responsibility. When you always demand somebody else to fix your problems, you won't be fixing them yourselves. And the more that government spends our taxpayers' money convincing you that you can't do something but they can do better, the worse off we become. But I think your point comes back to a more prosaic level, frankly. It's education and it's mindset. You can't get a local president for your tennis club or bowls club these days because we're all too busy. Now, people have always been busy, they've just been doing different things. So it's that engagement that we're losing. And if you lose the engagement at your local sporting club or church or community operation, why are you going to have engagement in top-line politics? Because people have just got disengaged across the whole spectrum. And I think this goes back to our education. And, you know, that's a can of worms.
Yes.
But, you know, if you don't teach people about civics, you use the word, if they don't understand what the political system is and what impact they can have as individuals and as an agglomeration of individuals, they'll be disengaged. If they don't know what it is to pay your taxes when you're 18, or, you know, get a passport, or all these things that should be taught at school. Now, I know there's huge demands on teachers already, but we don't need to be teaching so many things about other things when we should be teaching life skills to our young people.
You talked about one of the, you know, parts of the state economy, which is agriculture. And then you very rightfully said that it is part of the economy. It should be looked upon. It should be thought about. We should not just talk about the resources sector, which we are major on for sure. From a farming communities, it's not the agriculture sector per se, but the families associated with that, because there are generations and generations of farmers farming on those lands. So when you reduce the financial viability of a sector, you're just not looking at numbers, you're looking at people and their families and their traditions.
To all those top-line numbers. Yes.
So you don't see human lives. No. You don't see people being uprooted from the land they were born at, in the area in the regions they were born at, because it becomes less financially viable. So how do you see the agrarian side of our country, the agrarian economics, to be revived? One, and then to be seen as one of the critical facets of the Australian discussion, because as a country, we should be able to feed our own people to start with, to have less dependencies on basic resources. So how do we achieve that space of being dependent and supporting the agrarian economy?
I'm going to take the last discussion and use it as an analogy for this coming discussion. Once upon a time, teachers were highly valued. They were placed alongside doctors and lawyers, and now they're not. Once upon a time, we rode on the sheep's back, and now we don't. Or we don't know that we do. What's happened with our countryside of earnings power? Yes, you've got your resources, and that's top line, but still people don't really know because they live in the city. There's still quite a connection between the city and agricultural people. They travel to Perth, they retire to Perth, and there's quite a significant, you know, knowledge base that's in the city about agricultural world. But at the same time, you've got a declining number of farmers, because it's hard to make a living. You've got a declining number of families in the regional towns and out on the farms. That's the original lifestyle decision, really, to be a farmer or not, because you live it day in, day out. You not only do what you do, but you're subject to the elements as well, and to crop diseases and all sorts of other lightning strikes. You know, there's all sorts of things that can happen. But yes, we still produce so much grain. You know, when a country sort of put a nasty tariff on our barley, for example. Oh my goodness, where are we going to sell our barley? Well, we sold it to Mexico because they make a lot of beer in Mexico. So, you know, there are markets for our food. In fact, on the world, the world produces about enough food for 10 billion people. But there's a lot of waste, you know, with 8 billion people, and we've got a declining birth rate across the world. So the population's probably going to go down from 8.5 billion. But nonetheless, when you come back to Western Australia and you come back to what we're doing here, is that we have dry seasons. They don't like to call it drought anymore, which is fine, but we have dry seasons, and we're just coming through one, really. And that has an impact. And you get silly things where, you know, money can be spent on something in the regions which doesn't help the people who make the money.
Wow. I can go anywhere from here.
I mean, but it's huge.
When you call yourself a libertarian,
yes,
one philosophy of liberties comes very true to mind, and the liberties and the free will to run an enterprise, and the enterprise are the building blocks of the state economy, and these enterprises, if they're run with free will, less control, and then more autonomous, they survive and thrive. Not just survive, they thrive, and then it can be seen as farming communities, or it can be seen as small businesses, any form of.
Absolutely.
So the free will and the liberties to practice commerce, how does that sit in the current bureaucratic, commercial, and the economic environment in the state?
Well, certainly bureaucratic's interesting, because I have a personal view. If you take it to its extreme with the legislation and health and safety and ESG and all of these things combined, it'll soon be illegal to stay in bed, and it'll soon be illegal to get out of bed, because that's the way, you know, agglomeration of regulations and legislation's heading us. But we go right back to the beginning of our conversation. People are people. Human beings are human beings. And within human beings, there is a desire to be their own boss and to create something. And even in the most trying of times, you see people say, oh, hang it, I'm going to start my own business and go for it and risk all in doing so. Now, those people who risk all should be supported, and I don't mean by giving them a free cheque of money. I mean just taking the shackles off them. Because what government, small g, does when there's ever any controversy or disaster or fiasco, the natural reaction of politicians is, oh, we must legislate over this. They never de-legislate, or hardly ever. And you just get layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And what's worse than legislation are the regulations that come with it, because that's where the real power is. That's where, you know, the rubber hits the road in terms of its impact on small business. Big business can afford the HR departments, etc., to handle all of that stuff. Small business cannot. And it's big businesses, which is normally where the big fiascos happen, not in small business. You go back to my family business, where people started as a boy and retired as an old man. Most businesses look after their people as well.
And that comes to starting where you talked about the basic ethos and values you grew up with. You take care of your people. If the elections are held today, Commonwealth and state, what do you think are the biggest concerns of Middle Australia? And what are the things will they be voting on?
Well, from a federal perspective, which also overlays on the state perspective, it'll be cost of living. It was last federal election, and it's even more so now. So they'll be making a decision on the basis of whether that's been looked after or not. They'll also be making a decision on whether they've been dealt with fairly or not, and honestly and transparently. And that was all promised at the time as well and didn't come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
In the state, I think there will be a number of issues. One, governments get tired.
Mm-hmm.
Two, the current Premier was not elected to be Premier, even though it's not presidential system. He wasn't the leader at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And three, there's been some policies that people have not really liked at all.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we've come out of COVID.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but again, in the state, mainly cost of living.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think throwing money at people for their bills actually solves the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a band-aid on the cut.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to fix the cut.
In bringing people together in the political process of voting consciously and then asking the right questions, not just from a federal point of view, but when you are voting in your electorate, you should ask questions to the local candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the basic things when any person who's thinking of voting and then being involved in the conversation early on, they should start doing and then pondering on and pontificating and taking their time to conclude on rational and then factual decision-making process? So how do you think it could be
Most
uplifted?
don't do that, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
A small percentage of the population does that,
Mm-hmm.
and they take in all information from all sides and they come to their conclusion. That's overlaid the bolted-on people of different sides, but that's changing dramatically. It's changing on both sides. I mean, there's a worldwide phenomenon where the Uber left hate the working class. You know, that's a dramatic statement, but it's true. And then you get situations like, you know, bolted-on liberals becoming teals. So these sort of traditional sort of allegiances are breaking down significantly. So people will vote how they feel at the time for whom they think is going to solve their problems the best. I've got a personal view of government that the best governments are the ones that do nothing, because they try so hard to do the right thing they forget all the unintended consequences.
Well, I think that's a very interesting response to that question. My concluding question to you here is, looking us as a country as a one single union of people rather than division of multiple cohorts of groups, the unification factor beyond the Australian spirit, what are the things which will keep us to the spirit of Australia, or to keep us together to be who we are, and evolve as a mature, democratic, politically shrewd and smart nation?
When I left this country for a year and came back 20 years later, I left by, when people asked me, I told them that I was a West Australian from Perth. After a little while, I dropped the West Australian and just said I'm an Australian. And that's because of external perspective on the nation as a whole. People overseas don't care about, you know, which state you're from. They just want to know what country you're from. We probably need to do a better job of the federation within the Commonwealth. We've done some better work with the balancing of the GST, for example, because it was never meant to be a balancing item in terms of income. It was just meant to be a flat tax, and that when you spent the dollar in Western Australia or Victoria, it went to Western Australia and Victoria, and then got perverted. But in terms of that cohesion, yes, our big sporting events are very important. Our leaders, our prime ministers, doing well on an international stage is important. And our contribution to other things like the Commonwealth, you know, Group of League of Nations is very important. I'm less concerned about doing anything with the United Nations, because I think that is a corrupt organisation anyway. But yeah, I think that if we can do things on the international stage, when one of our bands or singers does really well, we're very proud of them. So we should laud success in all its ways, shapes and forms, and that helps build a country.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And it becomes an aspirational pathway for young people. But I would prefer to see more mature people come into the actual role rather than young people because they are yet to learn life experience. And I think this is important. And I used to be one of the young aspirational people, you know, way back in my early years too. So it's an argument against myself at the time. Is that if you are seeking to represent other people, and that's the core role, to represent your electorate made up of people who are communicating with you and you're communicating with them, very difficult to do that from an academic.
I think as a statesman, that's fairly
well, there are few and far between. And there have been statesmen who have not been recognised as such.
Yeah.
And longevity is not the answer.
You're right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. We're recording. We are recording. The when you where I want to go here. Yeah.